Welcome to the Speakeasy Live Show, presented by WeedmapsTV. We got some great guests lined up, Matty Mike. Tell us about it.
We have a fantastic show for you guys today. We've got the amazing story of Mark Woodard, who's a blind man who is surviving with the use of cannabis medications. We've got the Sacred Cup producer all the way from Colorado,
all right,
Pierzina. And we have the comedy styles of Tommy the Roach Lucero.
All right, that's going to be awesome. We also got a special event coming up in Prague in the Czech Republic, the CannaFest.
CannaFest.
November 11th, 12th, and 13th.
Biggest event that you can get to. It's all in Czech, but they speak a lot of English there. So if you are traveling, it's going to be a great place to see what the rest of the world is doing.
Come to Prague. Check us out.
Come to Prague.
Hi there, this is Stacey Delane. We're coming to you live today from the Weedmaps studio. I'm bringing to you an amazing guest who has honestly achieved so many great things amongst all odds. He's definitely a role model for us all, Mr. Mark Woodard. How are you doing today, Mark?
I'm doing wonderful. Yourself?
Doing great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here today.
Thank you so much for coming in. I want to hear a little bit more about your story. Can you tell the people at home about your story for us?
Yeah, a little bit about myself. I was, had the typical childhood and born in LA and during the 80s and 90s. So during the young age, after the Northridge quake and riots had happened, during Dad's role model and his lead and his notorious biker gang, I was sent up to Utah as a kid and my grandparents' house. And after a few months of being up there, Mom had come back and got us back after her drug habits, and we had moved up to a town close by there in Utah. After a while, about 4 or 5 years later, after spending 2 years of that in foster care, Mom had cheated the system and got us back. A year later, I had lost my sight.
How did you lose your sight exactly?
I was going to a good friend of mine's house, and right out of 4th grade, and he went into his older brother's room about mid-afternoon, and he pulled out a .410 gauge shotgun, not knowing it had a rusted shell in it from the season before. And slapping it to his shoulder, I looked at him, looked at the wall, and doing it the second time, looking at him and at the wall, a rusted shell had went off in the chamber, and it had ignited 10.5 inches away from my left temple.
Oh my goodness. And what had happened after that?
So I was placed into a coma for a month. After a month, I woke up there, thank God, in medical science. They were able to put me through rigorous surgeries over the next 11 months. Spent the next 3 months in the hospital getting rehab, learning how to walk again, adjusting to being blind, my new world, what was up ahead of me I was going to have to face. And when I was released from the hospital, I kept continuing driving 3 hours back and forth to continue getting surgeries and checkups done for the next 11 months.
Right. So how did THC and CBDs really help and facilitate in your whole journey?
So during that time, I was experiencing at a young age and being on so many of the really drug-induced
big pharma
drugs. My body was building a tolerance to it. So I was waking up in some of these major surgeries that I was having, and being at that age, waking up in surgery is going to be
traumatic.
Exactly. So I had a fear of these things afterwards, and I knew that, as being blind, I could not be on pharmaceutical drugs because ultimately I'd be a zombie.
Right.
I can't numb my other senses,
because you need them to live.
Exactly. If I numb them, then I'm going to be running into things all the time or something. So, what I was introduced to a few years later, due to Mom's habit, was the THC and medicinal purposes. So it's easier to choose that way for sleeping, post-traumatic anxieties, and so forth.
With all the issues that you were facing due to what had happened, it was the best medicinal way for you to cope.
Holistically, yes.
Yeah. And then what else did you get into after that? Being able to use THC and CBD, how has that furthered you in society, even with your disability? What have you been able to do with that? So
with being able to do that, apart from big pharma drugs, I've been able to be more of an asset to society. So go to school, get different certificates in holistic health practitioner, being able to know my knowledge and being able to give back to society. So not using the taxpayers' monies to support a habit that I honestly shouldn't be on with big pharma drugs.
Being able to help people and also educate them at the same time.
Exactly.
So where's the best way that people can find you?
They can usually find me on my website at seehowisee, exactly how it's spelled, .com. So SEEHOWISEE.com.
Also, so seehowisee.com, and honestly, this is one of the best stories I've ever heard. And the fact that CBD THC has helped you, not only that, you've overcome so many odds in being able to make this life that you've had, like, you've made it great and work for you. You've made a very big difference in society, and we really appreciate and applaud you for that. I'm going to give you a big hug. Thank you so much for doing great for our community. I do appreciate it. Thank you so mumuch. Once again, this was Stacey Deline coming from the Weedmaps studio with Mark Woodard. Thank you again, Mark.
Thank you.
Once again, you can find him at
seehowisee.com. SEEHOWISEE.com.
Check it out, you guys. It's an amazing story. Thank you so much.
Medicinal Mike here with my own interview on the Speakeasy live show, and I'm very happy to bring you one of the people in my life that throws one of the most awesome events, and that's the Sacred Sesh out of Colorado. David Pierzina, help me out, Pierzina.
David Pierzina, man.
Pierzina.
Yes, sir.
That's
How you
nice.
doing, Mike?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for coming to the show, man.
Thanks for having me, man.
All the way out from Colorado where it's freezing temperatures.
It's cold. I actually grew up in Minnesota, so I'm used to them cold temperatures.
It's colder in Minnesota, isn't it?
So now I'm 32, and I chose Los Angeles. Actually, is where I'm stationed. But the company, yes, we are Slab Gods LLC out of Colorado.
And you have a very successful event out in Colorado, the Sacred Sesh.
Yes, sir.
/ Sacred Cup.
Yes, sir. Our Sacred Sesh is basically a private event for the most elite stoner-friendly celebrity guests. Chance for the patients to smoke one-on-one with those celebrities. It's also a charitable event. We spoke on that.
Yes.
And we give back to the children usually.
And that's the one thing I like about your organization is you see a lot of people, like I do a lot of work for Canna Kids or Canna Moms, but you guys actually pick a specific family and use that event to solely help that family obtain their meds. And
through word of mouth and just network of our reps, we find somebody that's, going through it with their family, that has a child that's, needing of the medication or using it, in schools. One of the childs, passed an amendment, Jack's amendment there in Colorado. Just passed away, actually, Jack Split, rest in peace. That was for our first event. We donated 10% to his family for their funeral fund.
Yeah, it's the one thing too, when you work in this industry, you find there are two types of talent or celebrities, and there are those that have been and actually seen some of these children and families and are affected, and there's those that haven't. But once you've seen and been exposed to this, it completely changes everything.
It does. This started as, a medicine movement, and that's the most important part because there are very, very sick adults, children, veterans, as you've seen, show up, athletes that need it as well. And we need to keep in mind the medicinal, aspect of it. With the sesh as well, you mentioned Sacred Cup. We have the competitions involved. We do what's called Slabbiest Flower, Slabbiest Slab, Slabbiest Edible with the medicated chef. That's pretty cool. I'll be talking to him. And Slabbiest Medicated Beverage and Slabbiest Rig for the glass blowers. We're planning on bringing our next one after.
What's the trophy look like?
We do sacred pendants.
Nice.
So we have our glass blowers, put the categories in the glass for them, and then the pendants are actually tossed down each event, so you have to defend your pendant.
So you've now been in Colorado, and
Yes.
you've been in California.
Yes.
Who's got the better weed?
Dude, the weed here in California is far better than
You're welcome.
Colorado.
You're welcome.
I would like to add that I just came back from Vegas, and Reef Dispensaries is doing a tremendous job, and I got to shout them out. Reef. Yep, actually Burner, who is Cali-based, is associated with them.
Burner here at Weedmaps.
Yep, they have his in there.
David, how can people find you? Do you have an Instagram? Do you have...
Definitely. We have our own website, slabgodswithaz.com. There's an events page to register for Sacred Sesh and get your tickets there. We're also with the extraction equipment, the merchandise, and accessories of this industry can all be purchased on our website. Our Instagram for Sacred Sesh is Sacred Session. You can also Twitter that. And definitely go to the events page, register as a sponsor, register as a vendor.
Just get registered
Get
any
in,
way you
get
can.
in.
Check out Slab Gods. If you're a company out there and you want some exposure, call our boy David here. He's going to help you out. Good luck with the last name. Pierzina.
He's got it.
I said it. Pierzina.
He's got it.
Speakeasy Live. It's Sacred Sesh.
Ow, ow!
We'll be back. Ladies and gentlemen, from Speakeasy Live, the #1 cannabis education show here at Weedmaps TV, I'd like to welcome the #1 cannabis comedian, Tommy Lucero.
What's up, Weedmaps? How you doing? Right on. Make some noise, guys. Come on. God, it's great to be here. It makes getting that little ankle bracelet off all the more worthwhile, you guys. It's awesome. Is anybody else having this problem right now? Facebook's reminding you about memories you're still trying to repress? It's been happening to me all week. It's like Facebook Faces of Meth, ex-girlfriend edition, man. It's horrible without the before picture. It's terrible. Then I'm getting all these pictures of my family right now. It sucks. Like, it reminds me of the last conversation I had with my dad. We had this long conversation, and the first thing out of his mouth, though, was, "Oh my God, Tommy, you smell just like weed and booze. I've been sober for the last 10 years. I was like, "Yeah, that's because you were locked up for the last 10 years. Just means you didn't want it bad enough, bro. That's all it means." Jeez, it sucks. But I learned a lot from my family. I did. Like, one thing I learned from my family was from my mom. I learned how to light a cigarette on a stove. That's important. From my dad, I learned how to get all 4 tires off the car before the alarm goes off. That teaches safety. But from my uncle, I think I learned one of the most important things. And that thing is, if you're ever doing ecstasy, you guys, make sure and get really, really drunk. That way, no matter what, you can at least have a rolling blackout. Thank you very much. My name's Tommy Lucero. Thank you.
Welcome to the Speakeasy Live Show, our news segment brought to you by Weedmaps TV. We have Tommy Lucero, the comedian, joining us again, and we also have Benjie Cooper giving us the news topics of the day. What do you got for us, Benjie?
Well, San Francisco Hospital is considering allowing patients to consume marijuana edibles on site.
Hey, there's going to be some happy people up there.
Now, is that going to be legal? Because let's say I'm in the hospital and I'm suffering from I hate pot or something, and you're next to me. I'm going to have to smell that.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, actually,
I don't think the edibles have that much odor.
yeah, they're just.
What about I just don't want, and I'm just playing devil's advocate because I love high people, but what if I don't want a high person next to me giggling for 4 hours?
Then you really should stay in that hospital and get some mental health counseling while you're there.
I think edibles should be done at home.
I also need to get up and leave then if you don't like that.
Okay.
And laughter is such a horrible thing, you know. It's really bad for you. When you're
Well,
trying
no,
to
I just
get
mean
over
like
it.
there's a lot of old ladies in there who flip out. And I mean, even if you're just breathing weird, they're yelling at you. I can't imagine if I'm in there on 4 brownies, you know, and I'm just having the giggle fitch watching Golden Girls or something.
Because that's what you would be doing.
Right.
Yeah,
That's exactly what I'd be doing.
I don't know. I would think if you had something that required you to have that much medicine, you'd be kind of comatose almost.
I don't think you got that much medicine, my friend.
Well, hey, anyways, I think it's a good thing. I mean, honestly, you know, if there's one place where marijuana should have been introduced legally a long time ago,
Absolutely.
it's a hospital. And when you start talking about medical marijuana in California, nobody's going to start challenging your right. When you're sick, you're in a hospital, to have some access to something that's going to help and make you feel a little better.
And it's already going on at the hospital. They know about it.
Amen.
They know that it's going on there. It just right now there's a former physician who's on the board, and he's trying to convince them to allow it as a general practice at the hospital. What they're concerned about is losing their Medi-Cal
Where do
funding.
you get the weed from? Are you getting it from the hospital or are you getting it from home?
They're getting it from visitors,
Okay,
friends
that's
and
kinda
family that bring
cool.
it to them. So they
Same way
patients
you
are
got
getting
your
it.
marijuana in prison.
Right, they
Mike.
know that that's still happening though, right? Like whether
Absolutely.
they really don't have any power.
They're just
there.
trying to bring it more out into the open right now and allow people to not have to sneak it in.
We call that a rat, right, Chris?
Yeah. The better way to do it is to actually kind of monitor. I mean, these are sick patients, you know, and if they're getting
Right.
the brownies from, you know, George off the street, you know, and they're getting 1,000 milligrams in a brownie, they can only handle 100.
my inner Jew, I got a lawsuit. So now George brings me into the hospital, these brownies, and this hospital allows me to take these brownies from George, saying their medication, and George has salmonella, and I get sicker.
It's a problem.
I can sue that hospital.
That's negligence on behalf of the hospital.
Bam, we're on
That's why the hospital probably is looking to have some kind of standards, testing, certification, the whole 9 yards. And that, I can only imagine that would be part and parcel of any program that they'd introduce.
And they are meeting this week, actually, to figure out the legalities and all the logistics of it all. See if they can do it without
in other words, it's
losing
not going to
funding.
happen.
Right.
We'll see. We'll see. It is San Francisco, and they are kind of a progressive town, so this very well could happen.
All right, what other news headlines do we have, Benji?
Well, Italy's largest police union has announced their support for marijuana legalization.
Oh, hey.
That's a wonderful.
I haven't heard of any American police unions doing the same thing. We have LEAP over here, which is the law enforcement against prohibition, but that's a separate entity.
And those are usually retired officers as much as active duty. I've never seen an active duty officer come out for pro anything as much as even being educated properly on cannabis.
Well, there's a lot of active duty officers that'll speak to you clearly off the record and say, you know, whether they support it or not. But yeah, it's a tough position to take as active law enforcement where you're calling for legalization. So, you know, kudos to the Italian police. Was it police chiefs or is it?
It's their largest police union in the country.
Oh, okay. And that you know, that makes a lot of sense. You know, if they, you know, have done the research, they've looked at it, they're the ones that are out there dealing with it on a daily basis. You know, it's funny, we don't talk about Italy a lot when it comes to marijuana legalization, reform, laws over there. They're actually one of the countries that kind of gets left out of the conversation. So
Italy is actually a very progressive country when it comes to cannabis. Their legislators are actually looking at full legalization in the country right now. They're trying to figure out all the different ins and outs of the laws and get that squared away. And actually, the Italian army is growing
really high.
They are possibly they are growing cannabis for medical patients in the country.
They're probably pretty high if
to
they're
help
growing
keep
marijuana.
the costs down for the patients. The army
People must love Italy and never wage war on them if they have all these soldiers sitting around and they're like, you know what, we're going to take these guys and grow some pot.
Well, here's a better question: is how did the Italian government come up with that decision? Like, of all the people they could have recruited to be their pot farmers, they decided to utilize the military.
Where else but the land of pizza would come up with a good idea like that?
yeah, there you go. Munchies.
It's
ready
funny
to go.
because they're known for oregano, and back in the day when I couldn't afford pot, I would smoke oregano.
You bought it off me, I know.
Yes.
He's still upset about that.
Yes.
What other headlines do we got today, Benji?
Well, the California police have begun testing a marijuana breathalyzer.
Oh, now we're back to the bad police story. No. Actually, you know what? That's not true. You know, we do have to recognize that impaired driving is dangerous, and there's going to be a level, you know, and people are going to disagree. They're going to argue over it. But at some point, you know, their impairment can be caused by marijuana. You know, those big 1,000 milligram bars you throw down every night before you go driving. I mean, go to sleep. You know, they can cause a little impairment.
That was your attorney that said that.
Yeah, right. Allegedly.
You're screwed.
Well, the firm that made these, they've enlisted some California police to help kind of do road tests on the device.
Okay.
And the people that they pulled over, they asked them to voluntarily blow into the device to test it.
Voluntarily, yeah.
They said most people did because they were curious about it. They had never seen a marijuana breathalyzer.
They're curious if they would get arrested.
Yeah, and and none of them did.
Can you check me for
they said the
warrants,
point of this was
officer?
not to arrest people; it was to educate them.
Oh, I see.
It's because they're tricking them by saying, here, hit this.
Yeah,
That's what
right.
they're doing.
And
Blow into this.
Of the people that they did test, some of them had smoked within the past couple of hours, and those people were not allowed to continue driving, but they were not arrested or cited or anything.
Well, you know, the reality is we have seen these marijuana breathalyzers. Los Angeles has them, you know, and they're a coming trend. You know, obviously it's something that's going to be part of the future of cannabis. You know, people are going to get pulled over, and if the officer smells marijuana, then you're going to be taking a breathalyzer.
How do you prove smell in court, though?
Smell?
Smell.
In court? They don't have to. You know, an officer just comes up and says, hey, I'm trained, I'm qualified, I've been taught what marijuana looks like, smells like. You know, the bottom line is they come up to a car, and if they suspect that there's marijuana in the car, whether they actually smell it or not, that's their probable cause to search the vehicle.
And they've tried to come up with marijuana breathalyzers in the past.
Right.
They say this one's different because the ones prior, they've been able to detect a level of THC metabolites in your blood, but they don't detect a level of intoxication.
Well, I mean, that's impossible to get the intoxication or
Right.
the impairment level. But what they probably are tested for is the active, THC nanogram levels and not the carboxy THC. Yeah.
Right.
Well, there you go. There it is. That's the news headlines with Benjie Cooper, brought to you by Weedmaps TV. Thank you for joining us. Check us out on Weedmaps TV. We're the Speakeasy Live Show. Thanks for joining us on the Speakeasy Live Show, presented by Weedmaps TV. We had some great guests, great stories. Mr. Woodard's story was very inspirational, really something that touched the heart. And you know what? I think the show was just amazing, Mike. What did you think?
He skydives. Do you know that?
That's crazy. Unbelievable. Cannabis. That's the only way you can do it.
We'll see you guys again soon. That's Chris Glue, Medicinal Mike. Follow us on Instagram, everything. And we'll see you next week to learn more about cannabis.
Thanks for joining us. Catch us in Prague.